Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Souza. I'm a professor at the Federal Rural University of Pernambuco in Brazil. And today I'll share with you our experience using an assistive robot for training emotional facial expressions to people with symptoms of Alexithymia. So here is our agenda. First of all, I will explain what is Alexithymia. After that, I'll show you our assistive robot called TEABot. Then I'll present our experimental design, the results, and also the conclusion and the future work. So what is Alexithymia? What this means? Alexithymia is a disorder characterized by the inability to identify and describe emotions. So the person who has this disorder doesn't know how to express when the person is happy or is sad. But it also is a difficulty to distinguish and appreciate the emotion of others. So the individual also does not recognize when other person is sad or happy. So this person cannot distinguish the emotion of others. This disorder affects the general population, more men than women, and it comes together with other psychiatric conditions. So it comes together with other disorders. Specifically to the population with Autism Spectrum Disorder, this disorder affects 50% of this population. And also we know that ASD affects also more men than women. The presence of this disorder implies in difficulties in performing social tasks, like a daily life conversation, for example, and it also the social attachment and interpersonal relationship of this individual. About the treatments of this disorder, it usually involves intensive therapy sessions with psychologists, speech therapists, and other professionals. These sessions aim to improve the capability of this patient to recognize emotions in others and also to express their own emotion. Our assistive robot works specifically in this last topic. So our robot aim to help people to express their own emotional state. Recent research in the field of AI report very positive results in the treatment of this disorder using artificial intelligence, and also robots are widely used in interventions of persons with disability, especially the ones with ASD. So we found several papers reporting positive results with robots and this population as well. And they are used to increase motor coordination, for example, to improve cognitive and emotional skills, to motivate social interactions as well, promote social autonomy, and others. So about our robot, the TEABot. It is a social assistive robot, and this kind of robot, they help people through individual no-contact assistance, for example, in convalescence, rehabilitation, training, and education also. Due to their predictability, simplicity, and repetitive characteristics, this kind of robot are especially helpful to teach emotional abilities and other abilities to the ASD population. And this kind of robot, they usually have two main aspects. One is the design of this robot, and also the implementation of the robotic platform, which includes the computational intelligence solution or systems to improve their adaptability during the therapy sessions. We have here 3 photos of the TEABot. The first one on the left was the first robot we designed. Then we moved to the photo in the middle, and now the recent one has this characteristic showed on the third photo. We choose to use a non-humanoid robot, as we found in the literature that this kind of robot is more acceptable by the individuals with ASD. And we choose a car because of our participants, because this disorder affects more men than women. And how the TEABot works. First, the robot acts as a tutor. So the robot requests the participant to imitate one of the 6 universal primary emotions, like fear, happiness, and others. So it shows in the LCD camera the emotion, and also it speaks with the participant, ask the participant to imitate. After this request, the participant has 30 minutes to perform, 30 seconds, to perform the imitation. And in the sequence, the participant has their face photographed every 2 seconds. So the system starts to capture the photos of the face of that participant. And this face is analyzed by a deep neural network and indicates if the facial expression matches to the feeling that appears on the robot's LCD. So this information is recorded and used to validate and to measure the impact of the treatment. So each session we collect a set of photos of each participant so we can measure the treatment evolution. So the TEABot has two main components, the deep neural network, which is used to recognize the expressions, the facial expressions of the participants, and the robotic platform with the design of a car with sensors and the processing unit. So about our experimental design, we performed two experiments. The first one we called a pilot experiment, and it was designed to validate only the robot architecture, so the camera position, the sound, and also the intelligent system. So we wanted to know the accuracy of the system when acting in a real world session, for example. And the goal, and also we did a final experiment, and this one was to evaluate the effectiveness of the robot in a therapy session, in a real world session, with children with this disorder, the Alexithymia. Both experiments were carried out in the Association of Parents and Friends of Exceptional, APAI, in the city of Serra Talhada, in the countryside of Brazil. Both experiments, in both, we had the support of the APAI multidisciplinary team. This team has psychologists, occupational and speech therapists, for example. And in both experiments, we had the first one, we had 10 participants aged between 8 and 16 years old, and they take up to 5 individual training sessions. Two researchers were recording the results, and from these participants we had 3 girls in this experiment. In the final experiment we had 9 participants aged between 2 to 9 years old. They take up to 10 individual training sessions, and during the sections we were there, the researchers, recording the results, and we also had the presences of the APAI multidisciplinary team, and we had also 3 girls in this experiment. So here is the room design. The training session lasts up to 30 minutes, and the researcher was always there recording the results, and we had at least 1 therapist of the multidisciplinary team. Here we had the participant in front of the robot. Okay, I'll show you some photos about the results. So, in the pilot experiment, we had 7 participants with autism. 6 of them we call verbally, could communicate verbally. And we could see improvements during each session. The results of these pilot experiments were published in this paper, and I'll talk here more about the final experiment. The final experiment results in 42 individual training sessions. We are trying to use the robot in group sessions, but in this experiment we had only individual training sessions. So we had 950 minutes of interaction with the robot and more than 14,000 images or photos captured, facial photos captured by the robot. Some photos of the experiment in the API room. So we have here, we have 2 therapists in this session. In this one we have only 1 therapist, in this one we have only 1, and the participant in front of the robot, interacting with the robot. So the facial expression here appear in the LCD screen, and then the participant interacts with this robot. Here we have some photos captured by the robot camera. In this one, the participant is trying to imitate the surprise emotion. This one was in session 1 and this was in session 2. This one, the participant is trying to imitate the sadness emotion. All the participants, the selected participants, they presented difficulties in imitate facial expression, but most of them have more difficult to express the negative emotions such as sadness, anger, disgust and fear. The happiness and surprise emotions are the easiest one to express. We could observe this. And the anger and disgust are the most difficult ones. So initially they refused to imitate the anger and sadness emotion. They don't know what emotions are these. The parents reported that they usually made sounds to express the emotion of disgust, for example, and the expressions of anger and disgust were the ones that they had more difficulties to perform. The intelligent systems fails to recognize the emotion of sadness. We saw this, the system presented a low accuracy. After a few sessions, very few sessions, we could observe improvements like in the second or third sessions in the representation of facial expressions of these participants. And we received also reportings from the families. They report that the participants' evolution in the representation of facial expressions. Concluding, we could conclude that the robot is really capable of training people with this disorder, and it has economic viability given to the low cost of the production comparing with other robots available in the market. It can be used as a complement to the training carried out by the therapists. We pretend to build models more attractive to the female participants. Most of the girls didn't want to play with a car. We want also to build a model for training the recognition. The model we used in TEABot, it was used to train the expression, not the recognition, as I told before. And now during the COVID-19 pandemic, we are adapting this robot to an app version, so the person, the individual could train in your home with a mobile or a tablet, for example. And we also improve the intelligent systems. We want a self-adaptive systems, so it could focus only on the emotions that the participant has more difficult to express. So this will reduce the training time and also will avoid to repeat emotions already learned by this participant. So I'm finished here. I'd like to thank the workshop organization, especially Dr. Pablo, who has invited me to share this experience with you. This work started with project of José Antonio, who is now a master student. We have Júlio Costa today working this project. So we also would like to thank APAI from Serra Talhada, Federal Rural University of Pernambuco, and the name of our project is the Digital Inclusion Project. So the references I have it here, and any questions?